Welcome to Whiskey's a Journey. My name's Peter Fasciano, and today is my last Friday flight in this series that I've been doing, where I've been taking my bourbons, peated scotches, and non-peated scotches from my collection, doing a flight, picking the winner, and then advancing that winner on to the finals. My finals are coming up after this Friday. Today's Friday's flight is going to be my 18-year-old peated scotches. So let's go ahead and jump into this with bottle number one. Legic 18. This is 46.3% ABV. Natural color, non-chill filtered. It's an ex-bourbon cask. And, this one's an ex-bourbon cask for about 16 years. And then about 2 years, it's going to be in a sherry cask. I bought this off of the Whiskey Exchange, and I paid, or what they had on there was $84 or $85. But with shipping and taxes and all that, it didn't cost that. It was a little bit more. And this is also a 700 milliliter bottle. And that is going to be in glass number one. Bottle number two, Highland Park 18. This is 43% ABV, and unfortunately it is chill filtered, and it is also not natural color. And I paid $178 for this, and it is a sherry cask matured, and that will be in glass number two. Bottle number three, Talisker 18, coming in at 45.8% ABV. Very strange, Diageo. This is not natural color, and it is also chill filtered. There is a bourbon and sherry cask maturation happening here, and I paid $207 in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's going to be in glass number three. Fourth and final bottle, Springbank 18, 46% ABV. Natural color, not chill filtered, sherry cask matured, and it was $279.99. And this was the bottling of November 5th of 2023. At least that's the code that is on the bottle. I'm doing the Black Glencairns because I think the colors might give this away. So let me clear this out of here, mix up the glasses, and talk a little bit about what I have an idea to do with my finals. And I'm going to need your help in the comments down below. So give me a second to clear these things out of here, and let's talk about my idea. All right, so like I had mentioned, my finals are coming up the next 3 Fridays. And my first final that I'm going to be doing is my bourbon finals. I've been taking different types of bourbons in my collection and lining them up, ranking them, and then taking the winner. I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 bourbons that are going to be in my bourbon finals. Then I have my unpeated scotches, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 bottles there. This is my idea. This is my thought. Since people have been tuning in, and I am probably, I think I'm at somewhere around 6,500 subscribers, I thought I would, give back a little bit by you giving me something as well. And I'm not exactly sure how this works. I know some whiskey channels do live streams, and during their live streams, they ask for money. And well, they don't ask for money. Like, they're doing donations for giveaways. I'm thinking of doing a giveaway of my bourbon flight, 2-ounce sample bottles, get them all in there. And if you spend $5 either in a super chat or a GoFundMe account or sending me money on PayPal, I'm not exactly sure exactly how this will work, but my idea here is to give away a flight. Every $5 gives you 1 entry. I'll run the contest or the giveaway for about 2 to 3 weeks after the video goes live. There will be a natural cutoff, and then anybody that has donated a $5 will get a single entry into the giveaway. And I'm not exactly sure, again, how this would work. I'd have to verify ages and locations, and I'm thinking about maybe just limiting this to the United States or Canada. I'm not exactly positive how any of this would work. All right, I think those are significantly mixed up. I have no idea where anything is at. So I've got my water over here. I've got everything listed so you have an idea of what's there. I'm going to go from my right this time, move to the left. Nose them, taste them, give you a little bit of notes, and then go back the other direction, speed that part up with the video. And then by the time I come back, hopefully I will have an order and find out what is going to go on to the finals. And I have an Octomore. Actually, I have Octomore 13, 1, 2, and 3. Octomore 13.2 didn't fit into any of these flights. So what I'm going to end up doing is throwing Octomore 13.2 just into the finals. That is one of my favorite peated bottles, and I'm just going to throw that into the finals. So that would also be included in the 2-ounce giveaway with the peated flight. So let me go ahead and start on my right and work my way. Let's see what we got in these glasses. All right, there is a subtle amount of peat in here. Smells pretty sweet, and I've got that ashy note for the peat. Little salty, little briny, and all of them do have a slight sherry component, and I'm picking those red fruits up in here. And as far as the ABV goes, I think they're all pretty close, so nothing is too outstanding or burning of the nose. Smells like a typical sherried peated scotch, which is always good. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing on the palate. Oh man, that is fantastic. The ashy notes there, good amounts of sherry, got a lot of oak. This is very well rounded. Good amounts of vanilla, and that malt note is spectacular. That is wonderful, whatever is in that glass. All right, let's go ahead and get on to glass number 2. Much sweeter than glass 1. The peat note is much more subtle. It's dominated a little bit more with vanilla and honey. I'm actually struggling a little bit to pick up any dominant peat note, whether it's ash or Band-Aid iodine or savory. Not much to speak of with the ABV. You know, if I had to be pinned down there, I guess there would be a little bit of like seaside saltiness here. You know, lots of vanilla, lots of malt. Very sweet. Let's go ahead and get it on the palate. Oh, wow, that is really good also. All right, I'm just kind of writing down some notes here. Oh, lots of salt. Lots of salt on the palate. That's weird. It's a little bit of funkiness, a little briny, salty, vanilla, all that malt is still coming through. I guess there would be a little bit of sherry notes in here as well, but not as dominant as glass number 1. There are sweeter fruits, but I wouldn't necessarily pinpoint them as those typical sherry notes, like the figs, dates, raisins, and plums. Maybe a little bit more of a berry note. And there is, now that it's sitting here, there's a tiny amount of spice, pepper, or ginger. That's really good as well. All right, let's get a rinse and then move on to glass number 3. These are going to be very difficult. All right, chocolate, floral, fruity. There's a sweet component. And again, struggling very much to find a dominant peat note. Maybe a little bit ashy, and there is tobacco in here. On the nose, this would be the most complex, just rattling off all of those notes. And there is a red fruit component, but definitely not as strong as that first one. A little bit of peat. Peatiness is a little bit ashy, maybe a little bit more towards that savory side. Not picking up on any kind of seaside saltiness or brininess. Let's go ahead and get it on the palate. Oh, that's a little bit funky. Wet cardboard, earth, but the chocolate, the tobacco, the oak, all of that's coming through. There is some development here. The sherry fruits are now showing up. A little bit of bitterness on the side of the tongue. Pretty lengthy finish. Good malt, good vanilla, good tobacco, a little bit of chocolate. I like that one quite a bit. I would say that that would be the front runner so far. All right, let's move on to glass number 4. Little subtle differences with all of these. They're all very well rounded, pretty good depth with each one of them so far. Not as peaty as I thought they would be, and maybe that's just what happens with older peated scotches. They're a little bit more subdued. Wow, that smells so much different than the other 3. That has almost a I don't know how else to explain it. It has a juicy note to it. The peat that I get is ashy. Nothing so far has been anywhere near the Band-Aid and iodine. They've all been pretty ashy. This one comes across as a little bit savory as well. Good malt, good sweetness. I wouldn't say that there would be dominant red fruits, but more of a berry note than the figs, dates, raisins, and plums. But this smells amazing as well. Let's go ahead and get it on the palate. Lowest ABV by far. A little bit bitter, a little tannic on the side. That ashy note is now turning into almost like a tobacco ashtray kind of note. I know that doesn't sound very appealing. I mean, it's still pretty good. And tobacco, even though I'm not a smoker at all, a fresh pack of cigarettes that are just opened up, there is a tobacco sweetness that I get out of that reminds me of a fresh open pack of cigarettes. I could be completely crazy because I don't smoke, and people that do smoke might say, that guy's crazy, he has no idea what he's talking about. But I kind of am getting sweet tobacco with a little bit of ashy note. Doesn't really necessarily develop into anything other than that ashy tobacco. Not very much ABV, finishes rather short. Well, not short, but I'd say short to medium. Good amount of sweetness, but it's completely different than the first three. So I think I have a clear front runner and a clear bringing up the rear, so to speak. They're all very good, don't get me wrong, and I know every single flight that I've had here has been basically the same, and I've said the same thing. These are the top 18 peated scotches I have in my collection, so none of them are bad. They're here for a reason, but because it is ranking and the winner is going to move on to the finals, there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser. So what I'm going to do is just speed this part up. I'm going to go back the other direction, A, B, C, D, compare these, rinse as much as I possibly can, and then when I get back, hopefully I should have an order, and we'll find out what I've been drinking, which you already know, and figure out which one's moving on to the finals. All right, I am back, and I have a decision. These two flip-flop back and forth. They taste a little bit different going this direction, and then a note popped up in this one that I'll talk about in a little bit. So here we go as far as my order goes. In fourth place, I'm going to put glass number 4. This did not pack a punch like the rest of them. It did come across as pretty sweet. Most subtle peat notes were in this one. It did come across as a little bit bitter, so that's going to be dropping down to fourth place. In third place, we're going to jump to glass number 2. It had a really good amount of malt. This came across as the most salty. It remained pretty consistent with the peat note, which was ashy. There was a little bit of a pepper spice in here as well, but all of the notes that I got on here just didn't seem to bring it to the level that these two gave me. But when it came down to it, these two, I think I can probably switch these back and forth on any given day between first and second. And I can actually throw this one in there as well. I can see where this would be more of a salty, briny, peated note, where these two came across a little bit more as sweet instead of salty. And in the end, what I ended up getting in second place was glass number 4. And what I wrote down here is that the smoke came across as ashy. That never changed until the very last sip that I had, and I pulled out rubber ball and tar, which didn't quite meet my standards over this one. I think this was the most sherried of all of them, and you can also throw in some red berry notes as well. I would say that it's pretty sophisticated. You can sit down with this and explore it a little bit more. I really don't think that many of these had a very long finish. Of all of them, I think this had the longest finish of them all. And right at that very last moment, again, this comes across as a little bit rubber ball and tar, which moved it to second place, which leaves me glass number 3 in first place, which is going to move on to the finals. I felt this one had the most chocolate note. It was the deepest, most complex one that was on this board today. The chocolate note, along with the tobacco note, gave this more character than the others. The malt was really good, and the sherry notes were not necessarily the figs, dates, raisins, and plums, but the red berry note that I pulled out of here ended up being much better, and it suited my palate today in this flight over all of the others. Again, these could go 1, 2, 3 at any moment. And the reason, I think, now that I'm starting to think about it, this would be a little bit more of a specific mood pour. Like I would really need to have a salty craving to end up getting this, but it was still very good. But overall complexity and depth of the chocolate, tobacco, malt, and the red berry notes put this one ahead of everything else. So let's go ahead and figure out what it is that we were drinking and what's going to move on to the finals. In fourth place, glass number 4 was the Highland Park 18. Highland Park just doesn't seem to be a peat that fits in with all of the others, or the style of whiskey doesn't really fit in with all of the others. As soon as I smelled it and tasted it, it was apparent that it was much different than the other 3. So in a way, I guess that makes sense that this would be in fourth place. In third place was glass number 2, which is Talisker 18. So Talisker 18 is an interesting one. The salty, briny notes that I'm getting in here are good, but like I had already mentioned, it seemed to be maybe a little bit of a mood pour. I know a lot of people like the profile of Talisker, and Talisker 18 is one of those, love it or hate it with Diageo. I think a lot of people like this when it was at a lower price, but over the past couple of years with Diageo cranking up the price of Talisker 18, I think it kind of fell out of favor with a lot of people, but it's still a really good pour. And there also is this talk out there that they may have changed the recipe a little bit when they changed the label. I don't know. I have never had the older one. My only experience is with the newer batch, and it's good. I mean, for this flight, it fits right in, and I can definitely see why this is a crowd favorite. So second place is going to be glass number 1, and that was the Leipzig 18. Very good, and I believe it's probably going to be the least expensive of the 4 that are on the board right now. The sherry notes are good. The malt is really good. The price obviously is good, but just picking up that tar note dropped it down a little bit over glass number 1, which means glass number 1, I don't even have to look, but I'm just going to double check to make sure. Springbank 18. So Springbank 18 ends up taking this flight, and it's going to be moving on to the finals. I like everything that's in this glass. The chocolate, the tobacco, the ashy note, even that bitterness that shows up a little bit, and maybe it's just more of a funk than it is a bitterness. Don't really necessarily like the price of it, and for whatever reason, Springbank, whether it's the 10, the 15, or the 18, seems to be widely available at Trevor's and or Total Wine & More. I don't know what it is about Phoenix, Arizona, or Arizona in general, that Springbank ends up being available. But if you're looking for a bottle and you're ever in Phoenix, hit these stores up. And if you want to pick up a Springbank, hopefully they will have them, because I've never seen the shelves not have a 10, a 15, or the 18. So the only thing left to do for this video is to create a small little blend of the 18-year-old, see how that is. Let me get a Glencairn, get this blend going, and call this video good. And remember, if and when I actually do this, my peated Scotch final is also going to include the Octomore 13.2, which is a sherry cask finished or matured peated Scotch. Well, you know what? All of these seem to be pretty light. So maybe I wasn't really giving anything away by using the black Glencairns. Give this a roll in the glass. Let's give it a nose. Ashy peat, definitely. Sweet. Lots of vanilla. Good amount of malt. I would expect to get some type of saltiness from that Talisker, but I'm not picking up any salt. Yeah, it just smells like a sweet, sherried, ashy, peated single malt. Let's go ahead and get it on the palate. All right, pretty peaty, pretty bitter, not much sweetness to talk about. It's actually kind of drying out my tongue, which is crazy because none of these individually had a drying note to them. Nothing sharp, which is to be expected, 18-year-olds. Yeah, maybe I was hoping for a little bit more. I would say overall, it just flattened everything out. I think it smells better than it tastes. So in the end, I think it's probably a blend that you can skip. And that's where I am going to leave it today. Wherever you are at in your journey, I hope you're enjoying it. And please leave me some comments down below on some suggestions on how to run a giveaway. And I'll start thinking about it a little bit more and decide on my next Friday video whether or not I'm going to be doing the giveaway or not. That's all I got for you. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.